Morning, everybody. How are you all doing? A few achy heads. Okay, cool. Yes, as the big screen, and as Michael said, my name is James Brooks. I'm the engineering team lead for Laravel Forge. I lead a team of 10, including myself, and we've been hyper-focused on Laravel Forge. Before I get into anything, I have a lot to go through, but I do want to just start the morning by saying a huge thank you to Michael and the team for putting on an incredible conference, as always, and for inviting me back. I was here in Sydney, well, I was in Australia in Sydney in 2023 with my family. We had the best 2 weeks exploring the city and then ending with an incredible conference. This year, I'm joined by my father-in-law. I know what you're thinking. It's all good. We get on very well. I do, however, have a suspicion, where are you there, that he's here to check that I actually do the job I say I do and not just traveling away for 2 weeks to get away from the family. So I only have 30 minutes. That's all my jokes. I'm going to keep things moving. Okay, quick poll. If I could have the lights up just for a second, please. Put your hands up if you have heard of Laravel Forge. Mega. All right, cool. Everybody else, I want to see you outside at the Laravel booth to talk to myself and everybody else about Forge and Cloud and everything else we offer. So for those of you who don't know, my name, you know my name. Laravel Forge is a server provisioning and deployment platform created by Taylor Otwell in 2014. Times were simpler back then, weren't they? You could even provision things like Minecraft servers, which we still have a couple of today. And Laravel Forge is really what played a pivotal part in Laravel's history and allowed Taylor to go full-time on Laravel. If we could put the lights down now, it's okay, I'm blinded, thank you. It's quite intimidating. So yeah, it's now loved by thousands of developers around the world. And I joined Laravel in 2019 as employee number 4. I worked on open source for a while, Envoy, Nova, before I settled down on Forge, and I've worked on that for the last 5 years now. I was responsible for shipping features like database backups, multiple PHP versions, website isolation, and, as I'm sure some of you are aware, some of the bugs that you emailed me about. And for the most part, I worked on Forge by myself. However, as a very small team, there was 10 of us up until a year ago, occasionally other members of the Laravel team, the fabulous Tim McDonald and the very energetic Nuno Maduro, would occasionally help out. I learned a lot from them as well. And after years of incremental improvements, we had started to reach the limits of the platform, or at least we felt we had. There were a lot of changes that we wanted to introduce, but it was 10 years old. And the UI had kind of reached some limitations, and we wanted to do more. Importantly, we thought we could do more, but importantly, we wanted to do it. And so after a year of work, we launched the next generation on October the 1st, and it's been, it's been interesting, and I thought it would make a really good talk. And so on October the 1st, we launched it. And that included me doing a bit of, as we joke, as a world tour. So I was doing the Laracon US keynote, the Laravel podcast with Matt Stauffer, the Laravel News podcast with Eric Barnes. I did the worldwide meetup with Dan and Margaret, and a Reddit AMA with Josh Shiri. And yet after all of that, and all the countless emails and tweets that we've been putting out, I woke up the next morning to, hi, did the UI change? Yeah. And at first I was like, what the heck? But actually I took a step back, put my ego to the side, and I realized that it was actually a massive compliment to myself and the team, more so the team. We had shipped a huge refactor while the plane was in the air. We did all of this in production. We implemented a ton of new features, and for at least this one user, everything worked seamlessly. That's not true for everybody, by the way, but we were quick to fix it. All right. So I don't know, most of you will know this, but in 2024, Laravel announced that Accel had done a $57 million investment into Laravel from Accel, and this changed everything. Beyond turning Cloud and Nightwatch into reality, it also meant that we now had the resources to build out what we had wanted to do with Forge. And so over the next couple of months, we started to build a dedicated team, 3 or 4 people, that were focused entirely on Forge. So, I've mentioned Cloud a few times, and I just wanted to take a minute to talk about the differences between them. So Laravel Forge gives you full control over your infrastructure and your deployment pipelines. You can deploy anything through it, but you have to bring a VPS, a virtual private server, to it. And you can do that with DigitalOcean, Hetzner, AWS, a custom VPS, and Forge will then provision and manage everything on your behalf. With the Laravel Cloud, it is the fastest way to deploy and scale Laravel applications when you don't want to manage the infrastructure and you do want automated scaling. As an aside, Cloud isn't a serverless platform. It still runs on EC2 instances on AWS, but we're kind of managing all of that infrastructure for you. Which should you choose? Well, sorry to tell you, but it does depend. If you're unsure what you should use, again, come and speak to the team and we can kind of understand your requirements and point you in the right direction. But ultimately, you should just try both and see which works for you. All right. So I've said a few times we've reached the limits of what we could do with Forge, blah, blah, blah. But what were they? Well, they were really 4 things. I know there's 3 on there, but I'm grouping them as 4. So the first one was the ownership model. So when you would join Forge and subscribe to it, you were joined as the user. And this was great, it worked, but we kept running into problems with customers wanting to transfer the ownership of all of their resources. So every server, every credential would all be connected to that user, and you couldn't just share those away if you sold your company or you transferred ownership of the project. And we kind of worked around some of this with a feature we called circles. What are circles is a very good question. They were basically teams, just poorly named, but they did act more like a Venn diagram of server access. So you would look at Forge through your user account, your servers, and other ones that have been shared with you. But it was limiting and also very confusing. And as I said earlier, there was 10 years of history in Forge. There were a lot of legacy code, not inherently a bad thing, but interestingly, in a project like Forge, where the guy that creates the framework creates the product, there was, you could see the evolution of the framework through Forge, as in, we didn't have a notification system, so Taylor went and built that in Forge, and then realized, hang on, this would be good in the framework, and then added a package to do that. Same for Echo and Spark. This meant that we had a bit of a Frankenstein of an application. And then the final thing was that the UI had reached its limitations. We all liked the UI, it looked really good, however, we couldn't keep adding more navigation items to every single page. I've got to say, it's a weird feeling having everyone watch you drink a bit of water, but there we go. Do it again. I'll be there in a couple of slides, don't worry, dry mouth. So where do you start with changes like this, right? Well, Taylor's key philosophy at work and probably in life is to do the hard things first. And spoiler alert, doing the hard things first was bloody hard, but it really did pay off and make a lot of things easier later on. The hardest problem that we had to tackle was indeed the user owning everything. And to fix this, what we did is we created an organization level above the users. This is quite a common pattern you see for other applications where collaboration is key. Figma, for instance, do this, Google Workspace, that kind of thing. And so we would introduce this organization level and then move everything owned by a user to the organization. Of course, we're going to rename circles to teams. And one of the things with circles, actually, was you would invite a user into a circle and then select individual permissions to them. This was great. It added a lot of flexibility and fine-grained control, but it was a pain in the arse to do it every time you invited somebody. And if we introduced new permissions, then you couldn't just apply them to existing users because you might explicitly not want them to have that permission. So what we did is we identified groups of permissions, like owner, who can just do everything, and admin that can do everything except delete an organization. And then based on groups of the permissions that you had invited people to, we identified manager, developer, and viewer roles. And we had to kind of migrate everyone back. And then every other group of permissions, we had to create custom roles for. And this took us a few weeks to figure out. I'm probably lying. It probably took us like 2 months, really. But it sounded better. And then we get to the point where we think, OK, we're going to ship this. And that's when we learned our very first hard lesson, which was our MacBooks that we use locally are all MacBook Pros with M3s. I know, show off. And they are very, very powerful. And we didn't really appreciate just how powerful they were. So we had been running our migrations, testing everything. It took several seconds. We expected a few seconds of downtime, but we would just deal with that. We get to the big day, we ship it, and we nerf production for 2 hours. Yeah. So we rolled that back. We learned a lot of lessons. We learned that you should always put your site into maintenance mode when doing dodgy things like that. So I've imparted that knowledge. Please learn. We spent a few weeks fixing it. We came back, we tried again, and this time it worked. This was over a year ago, so we've already shipped organizations, teams, and RBAC, role-based access control, to Forge in production, and we've just done this like backwards legacy layer. You couldn't see any of that. You didn't know that we had done it, but it was already there. That was pretty cool. So around this time that we actually succeeded in doing that, we had also been doing Laracon US. And as part of our offsite, our team offsite that was only supposed to be a couple of hours, we actually spent several hours getting very giddy about how amazing Cloud and Nightwatch were going to be and what features we were going to put into Forge to make it better. And we came away with this list of table stake features. Like any self-respecting deployment and provisioning platform should have these features. And those were zero downtime deployments, health checks, heartbeats, a notification center, and a new API that I had been honestly really desperate to do for years. And we began just implementing these features one by one. Some of them we'd already been working on. We knew we wanted to do zero downtime deployments, for instance. And we chose to put each of these features into the legacy UI behind feature flags using Laravel Pennant. And at this point, we weren't really thinking about a next generation or 2.0. We just wanted to make Forge better. And to do that, we thought, let's just keep shipping features. At the same Laracon, we gave the world the first look at Laravel Cloud, and with it, a new Laravel design language. And we realized that actually we should probably be unifying the experiences between Cloud and Forge because ultimately they do the same thing, just in a very different way. And we wanted to provide you all with a seamless, consistent experience between both products, allowing you to switch between them and at least have a feel for where things should be. And so in December, we then hired Jim, the designer, whose whole purpose has been to apply that design language to Forge. And he's had free whim to do whatever he wanted, so long as it kind of made sense. And we've changed some of the processes, like creating a new site. It used to be 2 processes. You create a site, OK, that gets installed, and then you actually have to install the repository. And we wanted to simplify a lot of things and save some clicks. And so he also went back through all of these feature flags that we had been enabling for heartbeats and health checks and redesigning those features so they actually looked half decent. And so while Jim, and then for me though, the whole design came together really, and Jess shared the same opinion, when we took the blue hues and turned them green, and it really elevated Forge from looking what looked like a cloud clone to a standalone product. And while we left Jim, the designer, to reimagine the UI, we kept moving forward elsewhere. My father-in-law sat here like, you guys are weird. Vue or React? What? So up until now, we've built Forge with Vue.js and Inertia. We were using Vue's options API, and it was fantastic. But because Cloud and Nightwatch were now built with React, we saw it as an opportunity to align all of our products in the same framework. And we're told that, oh, well, there's lots of React developers. It'll be easier to hire. It's got a thriving ecosystem. There's a package for everything. Yeah, that's all very true. But actually, we're comfortable with Vue. We had been able to create an application as big as Forge already, and we had had no issues in doing so. The other bonus is that Cloud had already been using React in that design language, so we saw an opportunity to start lifting code out of Cloud, but because it was too early and they hadn't really thought that we were going to be doing that, we couldn't do it. And so we were left with no real good reason to actually move to React, and so we stuck with Vue. Yeah. And I look back and I think, was that the right decision? Should we have done it? And then I think, you know what? I've never looked at a piece of Vue code, and this is also true for the team. They've never once said, man, that would have been easier in React. So, I think, seeing, I am funny. And I also think, though, jokes aside, that it is actually valuable for a company like Laravel to own multiple products in multiple ecosystems where we can test and dogfood our own packages across them. That's how I sold it to the bosses anyway. So with that new front end and the decision made, we realized that actually the front end and the way you interact with Forge now through organizations was going to have quite a big impact on the back end. So previously you would go to /servers and you would see all of the servers you had access to. This was going to change now because you would see everything through the organization level, which meant all the routes were going to change. And also, part of why we chose to redesign Forge as well is that we had never really done pagination. And over 10 years, people start to accumulate lots of servers, lots of sites, lots of recipes, and other features. And so one of our goals was to really fix that. We'd have customers that have hundreds of servers, thousands of sites, and Forge was very slow for them. And so what we were going to do is introduce pagination, and because you have so many resources, the ability to search those. And so ultimately, it meant that we were going to need a new backend. Now, how do you ship a backend when you've already got an existing product and you're going to change everything? We could have gone with the option of forking Forge into a new version and kind of stripping out everything. We could have done it in a new branch. But ultimately, that meant that we would have to keep those in sync because we deal with third parties that change things without any communication, everything would always be out of sync and it would be a nightmare to maintain. So what we did is we used a feature flag again. We'd had great success with this, hiding these features that we've been building, like zero downtime deployments and heartbeats. And we kind of thought about this a bit differently. If we can feature flag individual minute features, can you feature flag a whole application? Yeah, sure, why not? So what we did is, whoa, that was bright. So where are we? We have the redesign in the middle right, which, typo, it's actually false, but it resolved to false, so the flag is disabled. This is new, this is real code. So it resolves to false, which means nobody gets that flag by default. And then in our handle inertia request middleware, we basically say, where are we there? And that share method, I know it's hard to see, but we say if the redesign flag for this user is inactive, share the legacy page data, otherwise share the parent data. And then we do some versioning stuff for Vite. Then we have a middleware at the top right here that basically aborts and gives you a 404 if you don't have access to that flag. And then the thing that I regret about this is the tests. So we had to enable the redesign flag for all new tests. The problem is that we had not that many tests for the legacy version and a lot of tests for the new version. And that meant that when we actually shipped it and we got rid of this flag, we had to also get rid of these 4 lines of very annoying code. But yeah, we basically feature flagged the entire application, and as part of that, we were also able to create a new pennant driver, Laravel pennant, called the always driver, and basically it just enabled the feature flag by default. What this meant was that onboarding engineers or QA or even early access customers, this flag would always be available to them without us having to do anything. And when we shipped this to production, early access was just a case of us really sending out an email to that customer, them enabling a flag, or clicking a link that enabled the flag, sorry, and everything was enabled. It's like a really simple idea, but it unlocked so much for us. Importantly as well, because it was behind a feature flag, we could just continuously ship new features, new fixes, new improvements, and nobody knew anything about it. And we also saw another opportunity to use feature flags. So Forge has 3 subscription levels, hobby, growth, and business. And really, all they do is determine how much access you have to things. So on the hobby plan, you can only create 1 server. But on the business plan, you can create teams and database backups, server monitoring, that kind of thing. And so typically, maybe I'm just an idiot, please tell me if this is the case, but you would say if the user's subscription is business, then you can create database backups or whatever. And this is fine, it works, it had worked for 10 years, but what it did was limit the way that we could kind of help customers, like on the hobby plan, we didn't want to encourage them to upgrade, to create an extra service so they could migrate everything across. We could just, it would be cool if we could say, well, you by yourself can create 2 servers even though you're still on the hobby plan. And that's when I learned about entitlements. And entitlements changed the way of thinking from if this, then that, to am I entitled to? And that entitlement that we're kind of asking can actually contain a lot more logic. So what we did is we built a package around Pennant. I don't know if you can tell, but Pennant is super cool. And essentially the way it worked was that you would resolve the entitlement, like a flag, which would tell you how much you're currently using, or the default. And then you could see whether they are entitled to do anything. So in this case, it's organization max members. And we check if we're entitled by asking the current count, how many members do you currently have, plus 1, and is that beneath a value that we might determine over here, like max members is 1, but on business, it's like 1,000 or whatever. And yeah, so with entitlement, with Pennant, the way it works is it will read from the database as the feature flag for that scope. It could be a user, an organization, anything else. If that doesn't exist, it will fall back to the code and resolve it from that, and then it will write the value, so next time you query it, it will read from the database. For feature flags, this makes sense, but for entitlements, you actually don't want to write to the database because you actually use those overrides for dealing with custom agreements, like you could think enterprise or that potential customer that needs 2 servers. And yeah, this really unlocked a big thing in my mind about how we think about plans. And we still use the plan, like the hobby plan and the growth, to define the defaults, but we're not just constantly checking if it's hobby. What if we introduce a new plan? We have to go through and add all these additional conditions. We also, I know it's a fad, but we also saw an opportunity to refactor to the action pattern. So up until now, Forge had this one single repository class that was made up of dozens of traits, like interacts with servers, interacts with sites. And the problem with this, although it worked, was that we didn't really unit test any of that because it was hard to do so. So what we did is we created an action class. For those of you not familiar, it's basically a class with typically a single method. You could use handle, which is what we use, but they could be invocable, execute, run, that kind of thing. And you can use dependency injection within those to have actions running actions. And what you get is very component-like composable actions. And then we would also go through the legacy UI that we were still supporting and actually refactor away the repository and use the actions. This meant by the time we were able to deploy, we were really confident that these actions were working, and more importantly, they were backwards compatible and we weren't going to break anything again. So the plan, at a very high level, is that we're going to ship everything behind a feature flag and work on this new UI behind the redesign flag. We're going to refactor to the actions and actually battle test things in the legacy code. And then we needed a deadline. And Laracon US is always a really good place to demo things for us. So we set that deadline. And then all of a sudden it's, oh my God, we've got so much work to do. Where are we even going to start? And so we kind of think backwards a bit. What is it we want to demo? So obviously all the new features, but also the new UI. We don't want to show pages that are familiar, like the settings page. So we don't really need to worry about that too much. But what it allowed us to do was work backwards and create individual projects for like we need components, we need an internal component library to do this, we need these pages being created, we need to check that the design is there. And there's a lot of projects, hundreds of projects by doing this. So something else we decided to do was assign every project an owner being an engineer, and they were responsible for like the definition of done, the individual tickets required to make up that project, like making sure the design was created, the tests are there, it's been reviewed, we've got the integrations in place. This was really powerful for us as a team because it really empowered the engineers to actually ask questions and own parts of the product that they previously felt like were out of reach. And it was also a really good opportunity to cross-train engineers as well. We'd been hiring very quickly, and we were saying like, oh, don't worry about that, you don't need to worry about this thing because it's not going to be there, it's going to be different. By saying to them, actually, no, you can go and own this, whether it's removing that or adding it or building it, they were able to pick up steam a lot quicker. And there was one more thing. So one morning, we get a message from Taylor, and he's had this idea. And we've been thinking about the onboarding friction. So the way that you would previously sign up to Forge is you would create your account, you would subscribe to it, then you would have to go to your server provider, like DigitalOcean, AWS, get an API token, go back to Forge, and then once you've done that hoo-ha, you have to wait 10 to 15 minutes to actually provision a server. And yeah, it's not very good. So we really didn't like this, and we've been thinking of ways to improve it. And in this message, Taylor suggested the idea of Laravel VPS. Laravel VPS had two goals. One was to reduce the friction when onboarding, especially for customers who just want to ship. And then two, significantly reduce the time for server provisioning. So goal one, no problem. We, for instance, with DigitalOcean, we use the OAuth integration, so it's just 1-2 clicks away. And we were talking to the other server providers to do similar things. And goal two, reducing the server provisioning time, well, that's really difficult. Installing MySQL, for instance, can take 7 to 8 minutes by itself. So any gains that we get here are marginal, really. But our first implementation of this did show real progress. We did get it down to around 6 to 8 minutes, which I personally thought, you know, that's really good, James. Well done. And Taylor said, no. 2 minutes or bust, like project scrapped. And so Kieran, our DevOps engineer, he took that challenge very personally, and he played a reverse Uno card to Taylor and said, why 2 minutes? Why not instant? Yeah, we laughed as well, and I was sat there sinking in my seat like, oh my God, how are we going to do this? But he made it happen. So we did this by partnering with DigitalOcean. Why DigitalOcean? That's a question I get asked all the time. Well, they're well-known, they're reliable, they have good security and presence in the community already, and more importantly, they have a really strong global presence, which allows us to provide more servers to more people. And we were dramatically able to improve provisioning times. Some of the work that we did for Laravel VPS was able to make its way to other server providers, so it's not just VPS that was quicker. And we also pulled a bit of an all-nighter, a couple of all-nighters, before Laracon US to work on additional features, like a real-time multiplayer SSH terminal for Laravel VPS servers. You could have gone, whoa. Yeah, that's right. So we did that. And then when we get to launch day, because we'd just been shipping all along behind this feature flag, really the only work that we had to do was go into maintenance mode, Run the migrations to backfill some of the migrations, some of the tables. So we have like site ID now. Like Jess said, you can have background processes and scheduled jobs on a site level and a server level. So we needed to backfill some of those columns with data that we previously didn't have. And the other thing that you can do is now name both of these. So we backfilled some of them to set the default name, so the new UI kind of made sense for everybody. And then the other migration we ran was to force enable the redesign flag for all the users that had opted out during early access. We shipped the new feature flag itself, now resolves to true. And then we did a bit of spot checking, new customers, old customers, everyone in between. It was fantastic. We disabled maintenance mode, and then that's right, we got our very own hype video. So now, 11 years after Taylor first launched Laravel Forge, we have shipped the biggest generational change, and with it we announced a smorgasbord, that's the only possible word, of new features, including those zero downtime deployments, heartbeats, health checks, onforge.com domains, server metrics, Nux to Next integrations, the notification center, a new API, new documentation, and loads and loads more. Thank you. I'll pay you later. Before I say what's next, I would say that really Taylor was right. Doing the hard things up front really does help. It is very hard, but and the blood, sweat, and tears, the sleepless nights, the crying in the corner to yourself when you think you're not good enough for the job, it really does pay off. So what is next? Well, there are no spoilers, I'm afraid. But what excites me most, and I said this at Laracon at the same time when we demoed this, is that what excites me is that this is just the beginning. We've done a lot of new features. It's very cool. But we also now have a platform that is built for another 11 years. We have a very healthy and sizable roadmap ahead of us. And I'm very excited for 2026 and beyond. I want to just say another huge thank you to Michael for allowing me back to your beautiful country. I love it. Can't get enough of it. Thank you so much for putting on an incredible conference. I'm very excited to see all the other talks. As I said, I had to run through this very quickly. Each slide could have been a 30-minute talk by itself. I will be outside at the Laravel booth. Please do come and ask questions. I would love to talk to you all about it in more detail. And that is everything I have.
Well done. Thank you very much. I was talking backstage to one of our other speakers, but James isn't going to do any Q&A now because he'll be on our team panel later on this afternoon. On that note, if you go into the app, you can put questions for the talks that are on right now, but also you can go into the Laravel team Q&A app and start front-loading and pre-loading questions in there. Make sure you all go and look, vote on those questions so that we can float things up and get them all answered, and then James and also Jess will be up there, Jeremy and Sabrina. So we'll have questions up and ready to go for them this afternoon. But thank you very much, James. It's always a pleasure to see you. And
thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.